Hey third grade friends, I am back today to help you with day 2 in your packet. So it says the first thing to do is review your vocabulary words. The page number is in your packet, so you should have already looked at the pictures, reviewed the definitions, completed the sentences on your page. We're going to review the definitions for these words quickly together because we will see them in our story and it will help us to understand what is happening if we know the meanings of these words. So we'll be listening for these in our story today. Okay. Remember, dangerous means something that can harm or hurt someone. Unable means that you cannot get something done. Huddled means gathered in a small, close group. Familiar is something that is known by many people. Amazed means that you felt very surprised. And our last one is tremendous. And tremendous means very large. So if you have your vocabulary chart in your packet that you should have already finished, you can have this out beside your book if you need it to help you go back and check out any of these words, okay? All right. Let's see. I wanted to let you know that our story today, The Big Blizzard, it will tell you what kind of story it is at the top. It says historical fiction. And what that means is it is a story that is set in the past. Now we know fiction means it is fake. Someone just made up this story and wrote it. It didn't really happen. But a historical fiction story means that someone wrote this story, and even though they made up the characters and the events, it is set in a time that really did happen. So we've talked about this before in class. We've read nonfiction, which those are real stories, about Abraham Lincoln. We've read about his life and things that he really did. But we've also read a historical fiction story where someone else wrote a story about a time when Abraham Lincoln was alive. We don't know if that really happened because they just made up the events and the other characters in the story, but we know that he was a real person and he really did live at a certain time. So this story, even though it's made up, it happened during something that was real a long time ago. So I'm going to leave this up here so we can remember that when we're thinking about this story, and I'm going to tell you when this would have happened if it had been real. Okay? All right, so I wanted to let you know that because third grade has so many students that come to my class, I do have 2 groups, and on your Camel book that says ELD, this is the one we use in my room, some of you have a book with a circle, and some of you have a book with a square and a diamond. If you have the book with a circle on it, I'm going to read that story right now. I'm going to read it first. If you have the story with the square or diamond, right now you can just fast forward until you see me hold up this book again. And that will be your clue that it's time for me to read the story from your book. Okay? They're both the same story, but one is just a little bit different. So it's important that you listen to the right book and the right story that you have. Okay? All right, so friends with the square or diamond book, wait for me to hold it up or fast forward until you see it, because I am ready to start with the circle group. All right, if you have a book with a circle at the bottom, turn in your book to page 20. Page 20 is where our story begins today. So you should have already filled out the answers to number 1, where you were thinking about what is the story about, what are the characters doing, how are they feeling. And you've also already watched the video on my YouTube channel, the clip about what a blizzard means. So now you know a blizzard means a pretty big snowstorm, which we haven't really had one of those this winter for you to think about it or know what that is. But maybe you've lived somewhere before that has had a big snowstorm like that, so you can remember what it was like. Okay, today I'm going to read this story to you, and we'll stop and look for vocabulary words and talk about some parts of the story to help you understand it. I want you to think about how weather can affect us. Sometimes, even if we don't want it to happen, weather can change your plans. Some days at school, your teacher might plan to have outdoor recess, and then it starts to rain or storm. And the weather affects us because then it changes our plans and we have to have indoor recess. So there are also days when it has snowed, even if it's not a lot. Sometimes there is ice on the roads and it's not safe for the buses to drive. So on days like that, the weather affects us again. Sometimes they have to close school when that happens. So this story is all about how the weather affects a family that's living in New York City. So this is a pretty big snowstorm because it's a blizzard. All right, so let's read and see what this family does, okay? I'll start right up here. Follow along and look at the words in your book. It was a winter day in 1947 in New York City. Rosa and Eddie listened to the radio. The radio announcer discussed the terrible blizzard. All right, so we had said this is a historical fiction story. So even though this family, they weren't real people, there really was a blizzard in 1947 in New York City. And so the author made up a story about what a family might have done during that time. And that's what makes it historical fiction, because it's something that really could have happened back in this time. You might notice that Rosa and Eddie, the two children who are characters in this story, were listening to a radio. That's because the year is 1947. That was so many years ago that not everybody had a TV in their house back then, because it's in the past. But a lot of people had to listen to the radio to get their news and to hear about the weather. And so that's what they were doing. This blizzard is the biggest snowstorm in our city's history. It caused the subway system to stop yesterday. It is very dangerous. Parents will not let their children go outside. Today, the weather forecast predicts that the snow will stop. The mayor has a message to all New Yorkers. Help each other in this disaster. All right, so like I told you, sometimes if it snows too much, the buses can't drive and it's hard to drive your car because the roads are slick. In New York City, they also have buses and cars, but they have a train that's under the ground called the subway. So even that wasn't running. So people didn't have a way to go anywhere. It said it was very dangerous, which we know means can harm or hurt people. And it was so dangerous that children could not even go outside. So you might want to make a snowman when it snows, but from the video you watched yesterday, you know that a blizzard is different because the wind is so strong. It blows the snow around, and sometimes you can't even see where you're going. So it's not safe to be outside in a blizzard because you can't see, and it might be super cold. And if they can't find you, that wouldn't be safe. But the good news is, in this paragraph, it tells us that they're hoping the snow will stop today. "When will Papa get home from work?" whispered Rosa. She felt worried. If you're worried about something, it means you're thinking about it and you're wondering what's going to happen and you're kind of feeling nervous or anxious that something bad might happen. She's probably worried about why her dad hasn't come home yet. In this story, Papa is another word for dad or father. But because it has been snowing so much in this blizzard, and we know that there's no subway, there's no cars or buses driving, he probably just couldn't get home from work and had to stay there to be safe. "He must be stuck at work and is unable to get home," Mama said. "But don't worry, the snow is stopping now. I'm sure he will make it home soon." So there's that word, unable. It means you could not do something. So at this point, he cannot make it home. Mama went into the kitchen to make lunch. She returned and was carrying her coat and scarf. Did you guys know you wear a coat when it's very cold, and the scarf you put around your neck to keep your neck warm? So why would she be putting those things on just to go to the kitchen to make lunch? "We are out of milk and bread, and I need to go to Maria's market," said Mama. So now that explains it. She needed milk and bread and some food to make lunch, and she didn't have any. So now she had to put on her coat and scarf so she could go to the store and buy some. Rosa and Eddie begged to go with her. They had spent 2 days indoors because it was snowing so hard. So you guys kind of know what it's like when you have to be stuck at home. Sometimes you do get really bored. That's how Rosa and Eddie were feeling. "Okay," said Mama, "but we have to stay close to each other." Wow, so they probably have to stay huddled, close together in a small group. Because remember, if the snow is blowing around in a blizzard and Mama can't see them, that could be very dangerous. Rosa, Eddie, and Mama walked outside. They saw a huge wall of snow. It was higher than Rosa's head. Then their neighbor, Mr. Colon, arrived with 2 shovels. All right, so you can see that in the picture. The shovel, that's a tool that you use to pick up the snow and move it. I use a shovel sometimes in my garden. If I need to dig a hole, I might use it to pick up some dirt and move it to a new place. "Who wants to help me shovel the snow?" he asked. The family shoveled snow off of the sidewalk. It was hard work. Rosa and Eddie finished the job, and then they looked across the street. Snow still covered the sidewalk in front of Maria's market. Maria, the owner, was trying to sweep away the snow with a small broom. "Mr. Colon, may we borrow your shovels?" asked Rosa. "I want to give Maria a hand." Now those blue words, "give Maria a hand," is that what Rosa really means? Does that mean she wants to say, "Hey Maria, here's my hand. I'm going to give it to you"? No. If you want to give someone a hand, that means you want to help them. So Rosa was asking to borrow the shovels so she could go and help Maria move the snow that's in front of her market. Shoveling Maria's walk was a piece of cake for Rosa and Eddie. It was easy. Then Maria gave Mama milk and bread to thank them. Those blue words, a piece of cake, does that really mean, hey, they went over there and there was a piece of cake on the sidewalk? No. If something was a piece of cake, that means it was easy. It tells us right there in the story. So you might think of something that's really easy for you. Maybe it's really easy for you to ride your bike. You might say, "Oh, that's a piece of cake." As Rosa and Eddie crossed the snowy street with Mama, they heard a familiar voice. Is that my Rosa and Eddie? Papa, they shouted. Rosa told Papa about how they helped Mr. Colon and Maria. I'm happy to finally be home, said Papa, and I am very proud of you because you helped our neighbors. Oh, and that's the end. I love this story because it has a happy ending. They got to get out of their house. That's what they wanted. Mama got her bread and milk, so now they can go home and have lunch. And the best part is their papa is going to come home and be safe with them. So you might think about in this story how the weather affected this family and how the weather changed their plans. And maybe think about a time the weather affected your family and you all had to change something you had planned to do because the weather was different. Maybe it was snowing or raining, or it was extremely hot and you thought you'd get sunburned. That's changed my plans before. So this story is historical fiction because even though the family and the characters in this story were made up by the author, the blizzard in 1947 in New York City was real. So the author wanted to write a story about something that could have really happened back then. All right, so Circle Group friends, before you go, please remember that after today, on day 3, you will read this story yourself at home. And there are some questions for day 3. Go back and find the answers in the story and underline them where you find the answers. Okay. On day 4, flip ahead and write about this story, the characters, the setting, what's something you learned from this story, beginning, middle, and end. And on day 5, remember there is the link for the virtual field trips. Choose a different place this week and write about where you went, what did you see, what did you learn, what did you like, and draw a picture on the back to match. And on Friday, when you're finished, on day 5, make sure your parents have signed in the boxes. They wrote their name beside each day because that tells me that you finished that work. Take a picture of this, email it to me. Also take a picture of every page you wrote on. Take a picture of this, a picture of this, and a picture of this. Your parents can send all of these pictures to me to show me you've been working hard at home, and it will also help me if I see that you are needing some help. I can email and write you some answers to help you out, okay? All right, guys, if you need anything else this week as you're working in your packet, just have your parents email me or Dojo message me, and I will get back with you as fast as I can. All right, Circle Group, you guys are finished for today. Go have a great time with your family and finish your work at home. I love you guys. Mwah! See you next time. All right. I am ready now to read with the Diamond Group. You probably have a diamond at the top of your packet. I don't have one on mine, but I know you have one on yours. So Diamond Group, go ahead and get your book and turn to page 364. Okay, that's where our story starts today. Okay, so you've already reviewed your vocabulary words yourself on the pages before the story. At the beginning of this video, we reviewed the definitions for these words together. So if you missed that part, rewind to the very beginning and listen to those. We also talked about how this story is historical fiction. So that means it's make-believe. It didn't really happen, but it is set in a time or an event that did happen. And we're going to read about that. So on page 364, our story is called The Big Blizzard. So you should have your book open and be following along. We're going to be listening for vocabulary words, and I'll stop and talk about a few things throughout this story to help you learn. Okay? First, I'd like you to think about this question. How can weather affect us? So affect us means, what does it do to us? Does it bother us? Does it make us change something that we're already doing? Sometimes weather can affect you. For example, at school, if you thought your class was going outside for recess and then it starts to rain or storm, the weather affects you then. It changes your plans because now you have to stay inside and play. There have been days when it maybe snowed a little too much and it wasn't safe for cars and buses to drive children to school, and we've had to stay home from school those days. That's a time when weather affected us. Okay? So it means it kind of changes your life a little bit. It says in this story, we're going to read how a blizzard affects the Hernandez family in New York City. So New York City is a real place, and there really was a blizzard here a long time ago. But this family is just a made-up family. So the author wrote about something that a family really might have done back then. So let's see what this Hernandez family does. Rosa and Eddie Hernandez huddled close to the radio and listened carefully to the scratchy voice of the news announcer. Okay, so there's that word huddled. Remember, they're getting up close together. This could be because a long time ago, not every home had televisions yet. So you couldn't just watch the news or watch a movie if you were stuck at home bored. They didn't have that because it was so long ago. People got their news from listening to the radio. So, the radio is not very big. So that's why they're huddled very close together trying to hear what they're saying. The blizzard of 1947 is the biggest snowstorm in New York City history. Tremendous amounts of snow and terrible weather conditions caused the city's subway system to shut down yesterday. Parents are even forbidding their children to go outside because it is so dangerous. The weather forecast for today predicts that the snow will stop. In the meantime, Mayor O'Dwyer's message to all New Yorkers is this: help each other in the face of this disaster. So there are a few vocabulary words in this paragraph. Tremendous amounts of snow. We know tremendous means a huge amount, right? Lots of snow in this blizzard. And it says that children cannot go outside because it is so dangerous. Dangerous means something that could hurt you. And if you watched the video about the blizzard that was one of the video clips on your playlist, you learned that a blizzard a lot of times has very strong wind that blows the snow around, and it's really hard to see. So that's why the children could not even go outside and build a snowman, because it was so windy. You couldn't see, and that's very dangerous because if you get lost outside, you could freeze because it's so cold. So lots of blowing snow and very cold temperatures are not safe to be outside in. So it said that their subway system had even closed down. Think about this. When it snows a lot near our home and the buses can't drive and it's not safe for cars to drive. New York City has buses and cars and they couldn't drive either, but the subway is like a train under the ground. And so it had snowed so much that even that had closed. So people who lived here had no way to get anywhere in the city because it wasn't safe to drive or ride in anything, and it wasn't really safe to be out walking because it was a blizzard and snow was blowing and you couldn't see anything. The good news is, on the radio they heard that the snow was supposed to stop today. So maybe the weather will start to get better. Let's see. "Oh, Mama," whispered Rosa, "will Papa ever get home from work?" So in this story, they call their mom or mother Mama, and they call their dad Papa. And so you can tell that Rosa is worried about her dad because he's been at work and they're at home. Mama gave Rosa a big hug. "He must be stuck at work and unable to get home," she said. "He is stranded, but don't worry. The snow is slowing down now, and I'm sure he will make it home soon." So there's that yellow word, unable. That means you cannot do it. He could not come home because of the blizzard. And that's what stranded means. When she says he is stranded, that means you're stuck somewhere. It means you can't really get out. All right, but she says if the snow stops, hopefully he'll get to come home. So Mama went into the kitchen to make lunch. She came out carrying her coat and scarf. Now when I read this, I thought, why would you go in the kitchen and put on your coat? That doesn't make any sense. You don't need a scarf to make lunch. "We are out of milk and bread, so I need to try to get to Maria's market," said Mama. Oh, so that makes sense. She went to the kitchen. She didn't have any bread to make a sandwich with for lunch or no milk to drink. So she needs to go to the market, which is a store, to get some food. And if you can't drive or ride, you're probably going to have to walk. So she's got lots of coats and scarves on to try to stay warm. Rosa and Eddie jumped up and begged to go with her. Mama had kept them inside for 2 days because it was snowing too hard to go out. Oh, can you imagine? Do you know what that feels like, being stuck at home and just wanting to go anywhere? "No," said Mama, "it's too cold." Remember, it's so dangerous. They don't want the children to go outside. Rosa and Eddie knew they shouldn't argue with Mama, but they were tired of being indoors. "Oh, please take us outside. We can all go to the store together," said Eddie. "Okay," said Mama with a sigh, "but we have to stick together and stay close to each other." Right? They've got a huddle. Again, stay close together. All right, Mama helped Rosa and Eddie bundle up in their uncomfortable but warm wool clothes. When they got outside, they were astonished and amazed to find a wall of snow several feet high. Luckily, their neighbor, Mr. Colon, arrived with 2 metal shovels. All right, so they were amazed. That means they were so surprised to see snow that high. "Who wants to help dig out?" he asked. So in the picture, you can see a shovel. I use a shovel when I'm digging a garden. It is a tool that you can use to move something from one place to another. So if I need to dig a hole, I can use the shovel to move the dirt. In this story, they're using shovels to move the snow because it's all on their sidewalks and people can't even open their doors because the snow is so high. So they have to move the snow with the shovel. Mama, Rosa, and Eddie took turns shoveling snow. It was hard work, but no one fussed or complained. When they were done, they looked across the street. Maria's market was still snowed in. Mrs. Sanchez, the owner, was trying to clear the snow with a small broom. "Mr. Colon, may we borrow your shovels, por favor?" asked Rosa. "I think we need to give Mrs. Sanchez a hand." All right, por favor, it means please in Spanish. So this family might speak English and Spanish. So they might be a lot like some of you who can speak more than one language. So that's really cool. I like that part of this story. Now when it says, "I think we need to give Miss Sanchez a hand," does that mean they're going to go to the market and be like, "Here, Miss Sanchez, here's my hand. I want to give it to you"? No, if you want to give someone a hand, that means you want to help them. So if your mom is cleaning at home, you might say, hey, let me give you a hand with that. It means let me help you with that. Shoveling the walk in front of the store was easy. It was a piece of cake for Rosa and Eddie. They laughed and threw snowballs too. Mrs. Sanchez was grateful for their help. Gracias, she said, and gave Mama milk and bread from her store as thanks. Another Spanish word. Gracias means thank you. So that was her way of saying thank you for helping me to move the snow. Those blue words, a piece of cake, does that mean when Rosa and Eddie went, there was a piece of cake there for them to eat? No, that's another idiom. If something is a piece of cake, that just means it was very easy. So for some of you, maybe you're really good at swimming. You might say, oh, swimming is a piece of cake. That means it's really easy for you. Okay, let's go to the next one. As Rosa and Eddie crossed the snowy street with Mama to go home, they heard a deep, familiar voice. Remember, familiar means it's well known. So it was a voice that they knew. It wasn't a stranger's voice. Is that my Rosa and Eddie? Papa, they shouted and ran over to him. Rosa told him breathlessly about how they helped Mr. Colon and Mrs. Sanchez. It is such a relief and a comfort to finally be home, said Papa. I am so proud of you for helping our neighbors. The end. I love the ending of this story because everybody is happy. The kids got to get out of the house for a little bit, which is what they wanted. The neighbors got help shoveling snow, which is what they needed. Mama got her bread and milk, and now Papa gets to come home. So I love this story. So you might think about, how did the weather affect this family? How did it change from maybe what their normal life was usually like? And maybe you can think about a time when the weather has affected your family. Maybe it's changed your plans. Okay? All right, that's the end of our story for today. Remember, tomorrow, you read this story by yourself and answer the questions that are on day 3 by underlining where you find the answers. All right. And every day this week, make sure your family, your parents are signing their name in the box beside the day. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. So their name should be on here 5 times. And that shows me that you finished your work for that day. So tell them to take a picture of this after they've signed every day. Send it to me. Take a picture of your vocabulary chart with your words, your definitions, your example sentences, and your pictures. Send that to me. When you have finished writing about the story, take a picture and send this to me. And also, when you have finished writing and drawing about your field trip, send the writing and picture to me. This helps me to know what you're working on. It helps me to know if you have any problems that I can help you with. And so on the last day, day 5, remind your parents to sign it all, take pictures of it all, and send it to me. Okay? If you have any questions during this week while you're working on these things at home, tell your parents to email or dojo message me, and I will help you as fast as I can. Okay? All right, guys, I'm really proud of you for working so hard at home. I can see your brains getting bigger, and I love it, and I can't wait to see you again. Okay? If you need anything, let me know. Happy learning. I'll see you soon, guys. Bye-bye.